I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instinct was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello there, welcome back. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister has apologised for Christmas travel disruption as several public sectors go on strike. But he insists refusing to negotiate on pay is the right thing to do in order to tackle high inflation. Border Force staff are the latest to walk out. Their 8 days of industrial action began today. Military personnel and volunteers from the civil service have been deployed to check passports at affected airports. Rishi Sunak says public sector pay must be controlled.
First of all, I'm really sad and I'm disappointed about the disruption that is being caused to so many people's lives, particularly at Christmas time. What I'm trying to do is make the right long-term decisions for the country, for everybody's benefit. And I think we all know that the major economic challenge we all face now is inflation. It's inflation that's eating into everyone's pay packets, it's rising the cost of living, and I want to make sure that we reduce inflation. Part of that is being responsible when it comes to setting public sector pay.
The Health Secretary has called the newly announced strikes by nurses on the 18th and 19th of January disappointing and says they're in no one's best interests. The Royal College of Nursing says the walkouts will go ahead unless the government opens up negotiations over pay. A strike by ambulance workers in England and Wales, planned for next Wednesday, has been delayed until the 11th of January. A woman and 2 men have been killed and several others injured after a gunman opened fire at a Kurdish community centre in Paris. Protesters clashed with police near to where the incident took place, expressing anger at the attack, which authorities believe could be racially motivated. The French President Emmanuel Macron called the incident a heinous attack on the Kurdish community. A 69-year-old man who is already known to police has been detained. The US Congress has passed a £37 billion emergency aid bill for Ukraine. The record military funding follows President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington on Wednesday, his first foreign trip since the start of Russia's invasion. The bill, which was passed only hours before the midnight deadline, was hotly contested by conservative Republicans, who raised concerns about the level of US support for Ukraine. While President Joe Biden says Americans would stand with the people of Ukraine for as long as it takes. And the Sun newspaper said it regrets publishing a column by Jeremy Clarkson in which he discusses his hatred for the Duchess of Sussex. The Independent Press Standards organisation received more than 20,000 complaints about the article. The Sun has said it is sincerely sorry, and Mr Clarkson said he'd be more careful in future. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon. Yes, they brought me in to host again because I'm the best and also because I'm the only person in Britain not currently on strike. And I'm joined by the wonderful Miriam Elliott and the highly talented Jonathan Cogan. Unfortunately, his talent is in hand modelling, which is his other job. That's your other job, isn't it, Jonathan? Can we see those hands?
I'm not very good at that either, if I'm completely honest.
Those are professional hands. So I'll be going through all the top stories with those guys in a minute. But first, let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. So the Daily Mail has NHS wasting millions on woke non-jobs. I could have told you that. The Telegraph, pro-trans laws needed across the UK, says Starmer. We'll be talking about that in a minute. They're definitely not needed. The Eye, UK set for clash over new right to change legal gender age 16 in Scotland. That's that story again. The Mirror, always close to Mama, King delivers first Christmas speech, yards from where the Queen is buried. The Times, over 50s encouraged to end early retirement. And finally, The Star, Mad Vlad war on Banksy, hackers target artists. And you can guess what that's about. So those were your front pages. So let's have a look at the Daily Mail and these woke non-jobs, Miriam.
That's right, because we had a lot of people in woke subjects from woke universities, and there's now loads of NHS woke non-jobs, including a £115,000 a year director of lived experience.
That's a good lived experience for 150,000.
I'd love a non-job. Does that mean you can just have like a that you just get up and you non-get up? I mean, how does it work?
You get up, you go in, and you talk about making the world equal.
Nice.
But I don't know if that's actually saving lives. So basically, yeah, millions of pounds, probably more, is being funneled into these schemes. And, there needs to be some kind of budget. Looking at the fact that all these nurses have gone on strike, surely they should be receiving more money than ideological.
One would think, Miriam, but that would be too normal. I mean, my friend calls this the DIE, because it's diversity, inclusion and equality, and he says DIE needs to die. And I was talking to my friend Callum on Lotus. He's a very, very smart guy, a lot of statistics, he always has statistics ready. And I said, but isn't this overdone? Like Leo on this show is always saying, if you took this money, you could pay for everything. And I was thinking, no, you couldn't. But actually, it is a lot of money. You could pay for all the pay rises instead of this rubbish.
Yeah, of course, for people that actually need money.
Need it, yeah. What do you think?
I've actually got quite a contrarian view here.
Okay.
I think they should keep all these woke jobs, but also they should have a load of red pill jobs as well, just to balance it out. You could just have guys like doing squats, paid by the NHS, just, hunting elk, making podcasts. That would be... I think that's the best way to keep it fair.
And Jonathan, for my mum watching at home, explain red pill.
Oh, she knows. No. What is it? So the red pill is kind of, I guess it's like a slang term which would maybe be ideologically opposed to woke. I think it's kind of maybe a male-orientated viewpoint, perhaps?
Yeah, there's two.
Not necessarily. I'd see it as more just pragmatic.
Well, there's two. There's the relationships one that says, hey, guys, we shouldn't get married anymore because it's all ruined. That's the sort of...
Yeah.
That's just the pill.
Yeah, and then there's the political one, which is like, I've woken up and seen through the mainstream media and so on. But yeah, I mean, this comes after Savage Javid said that there were too many roles of this kind. Have you noticed that Javid's getting a bit more rogue? Because he's sort of said, I'm going to stand down anyway.
Yeah.
The other day he said, the NHS is unsustainable, guys, by the way. I love that. Just as you're about to leave, you're like, by the way, that doesn't work. See you later. It's not my responsibility.
Yeah. I'm never going to forget his forced mandated vaccinations during that COVID hysteria. And
Yes,
it's put me off him now forever.
Yeah. Well, luckily he's going anyway, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Telegraph, Jonathan. What have they got?
Well, so this is a bold move from Keir Starmer. So he says pro-trans laws needed across UK. That's what Starmer says. So Keir Starmer has vowed to change the law to allow trans people to self-declare their gender in the wake of similar moves in Scotland, which there's been quite a bit of anger about. So as you can imagine, if you've watched the news over the last 2 years, this is going to be a very polarising... You shook your head when you said you haven't watched the news. You're only on the news. The news is for being on, not for watching. So this is going to be quite a polarising position to take. There's going to be a lot of people who agree with him and think there should be, a rewriting of these laws to allow people to identify at a younger age, like they're doing in Scotland. They're passing that through. In Scotland, it's just been passed through. For those who don't know, they've now, in Scotland, lowered the age to 16, right? So you can now self-ID whichever gender you want after 3 months of living as that gender.
Yeah.
So Keir Starmer was saying we should do something like that. I also think that's going to isolate a lot of people because, especially with Labour's attempt to kind of get the middle-aged man on board now, I think that's going to appeal to younger voters and, select groups. But, I think it's going to be very polarising.
And we're talking about that attempt later to get the middle-aged man on board. But Starmer is a strange one to me, Miriam, because is he ideological or is he pragmatic? Because he used to edit this magazine called Socialist Alternatives, and he's a Pabloist, which is a sort of splinter group from Trotskyism. So he is quite radical. At the same time, he's clearly trying to appeal to people with mortgages now, middle-aged men. He's trying to get the red wall back.
Yeah.
But with this, what is he doing? I mean, is he trying to get SNP votes back? What's he doing?
He's kind of flip-flopping, really, isn't he? I mean, I get the trans rights argument, but I also understand that women need single-sex spaces.
Yeah.
Particularly, women of various religions definitely need that. What?
The mikveh?
The mikveh. No, but that's true. But it just seems like such it's again, the mainstream media are kind of, going doolally over a very tiny group of people, and it doesn't really affect the vast majority of us. And I feel like it's a small issue that's being amplified again, a bit like a seasonal virus.
How dare you? What are you suggesting? What are you suggesting, Miriam? Within broadcast regulations, what are you suggesting? Let's not answer that. So who are you going to vote?
It's a scam.
Is Starmer convincing you? Would you guys vote for him?
No.
Pretty clear.
Would I vote for him? I don't think I'm registered to vote. I've never done it.
Are you 16?
Do you have to be 60? Oh, yeah. No, I mean, what do I think? I think he's just trying to... Yeah, I think he's being a politician. He's trying to win as much favour as he can with the public.
Yes,
and this will win him some favour.
Yeah, this will lose him favour. So I'm very, very surprised about this one. But anyway, let's move on and do the Mirror, who have the story about King Charles, I believe.
Yes. So King Charles is set to do his first speech after his lovely mother died. And it'll be the 90th anniversary of his grandfather doing the very first King's speech.
Wow.
Which I don't know if you remember that film with the...
I was going to say, I don't remember the date.
Is that the one with the spies?
The King's speech?
With the stutter.
That's King's Man.
Oh. The King's Man. So, they're...
Colin Firth, surely.
So the whole idea is to keep it kind of a tribute to Elizabeth, I think. That's what it's going to be. Which it should be.
I think it'll be moving. I think it's going to be. Yeah.
I think he's going to keep all his sort of like activism out of it. Apparently.
Oh, that'd be great.
Which would be great.
If he doesn't start banging on about trees and stuff. Do you know what I think would be great? It's if he said, look, it's a tough time for everyone. We have the cost of living, we have the strikes, and we have my son being a total prat on Netflix. Wouldn't that be amazing? And he keeps breaking off halfway through to go, Harry, why? That's what I want to see. I mean, it must be tough for him, mate. It's a tough time for Charles as well as everyone else.
Yeah.
It's very tough. He's lost his mother, to an extent, lost his son, you could argue.
Totally lost his son.
To a tempting...
ideology.
Has tempted him away from perhaps his duty.
A siren.
Argue. A siren.
A woke siren.
Sexy siren.
Woo, woo.
Rogue sirens, what they have in a police car. I can't think of anything.
Does it have loads of colours that go around?
You wouldn't have a woke siren because woke police don't show up for any crimes. They're just online. Am I right?
Is
this on?
I've been arrested enough times to disagree, but yeah.
But yeah, it's the King's Speech. It's an important thing. It is symbolic. I mean, our late Queen did the first televised one in 1957, wasn't it? I found a quote from it which I love. I remember watching it, not at the time, but on YouTube. And she said, "The trouble is caused by unthinking people who carelessly throw away ageless ideals as if they were old and outworn machinery." I love that. That kind of. And she went on to talk about sort of lack of morals and the need to keep.
This was the Queen's first speech.
Yeah, the first televised one.
Oh, okay.
And I just thought that was brilliant. And do you think King Charles will do anything as sort of morally, instructive as that?
No. That's quite a conservative viewpoint the Queen was putting across.
It was, yeah.
She was quite conservative, I hear, being the sort of Queen and the head of the
church.
But
she's got lots to lose, so yeah.
Yeah, well, it depends what you mean by conservative, but she certainly believed in tradition, obviously. But what do you think, Miriam, that our King will put in it then?
I can't imagine that he would, he would be affied by the offensive... That's offensive. Morals? They're offensive.
He was quite good in his speeches. When the Queen died, he was quite good, though, wasn't he? I found his speeches surprisingly good.
Do you reckon he writes them? Or will he have writers?
No, he'll have a team of writers, surely.
Do you reckon they're hiring?
Well, he had that person passing him the pen, didn't he, that he got quite annoyed about. But I think he does have a lot to do with them because he's quite artistic, he's quite sensitive. I feel like he did write it, and he talked about his faith and his place at the head of the church, which isn't something that someone else could really put onto you. I think you'd have to come up with that yourself, don't you think?
I think someone else could write it, but I think he'd stand by the values and, yeah.
I think his mum's a hard act to follow, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Well, that's definitely the case. No one's going to dispute that. So finally, let's have a look at the Daily Star, Jonathan.
Yes. So mad blad war on Banksy. This is an interesting story. So famous yet anonymous artist Banksy has found himself at war with the Russian state and its despotic leader, Vladimir Putin, after he tried to help raise money for Ukraine. So the secretive graffiti artist is selling screen prints for the first time in 8 years to help stricken folk battling for their freedom against a Russian invader's thug. So 50 of these artworks, of these screen prints, are up for grabs as part of a lottery competition on the Legacy of War Foundation website. So he's making... he's raising money here. He's obviously a politically charged artist, I'd say. Very Bristol. I remember when he was super big and there's like, oh, have you seen the new Banksy? And we'd all go and see it, but I still don't really know who he is. I have a suspicion it's one of Andrew Doyle's alter egos.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The new Titania.
You mean the whole thing is high satire?
I think he might be Banksy.
I think you might be one of Andrew Doyle's characters. You look sort of like a cartoon. What if we're all Andrew Doyle's puppets?
I'm quite Pixar, yeah.
We obviously are in a sense already.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't like Putin or Banksy.
How dare you?
Where do I sit?
Who's worse, in your opinion?
It's worse.
Yeah, I'm against both. That is a question. Because Banksy's kind of lame now, isn't he? Like, at one point, he was quite edgy.
Super cool, right? Yeah.
And now he's quite lame.
No, but he was never really that edgy.
Right.
Really?
He wasn't that edgy, but
he was
a
never
bit
edgy
cooler.
at all. It was actually completely establishment from the beginning.
From the beginning.
That's why everyone liked it.
He did the NHS Angel thing, and I was like, oh, it's sort of on the level of like Led by Donkey, sort of middle-class milquetoast satire.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
That's my whole brand.
So basically we're saying we're not necessarily pro-Putin, but we are anti-Banksy.
It was the aesthetics of shock.
Right.
But underneath the aesthetics of shock art, which was like late 90s, but actually the content is incredibly predictable. It didn't go against any of the prevailing ideology.
It was ostensibly a kind of Tracy Emin-esque gesture, but it had none of the substance. Or did she not?
Yeah, we live in a way. Our establishment sees itself as anti-establishment, but that's the establishment.
Was Tracy Emin the girl who had the unmade bed?
Yeah. I just realised that was rubbish as well.
She needs some Jordan Peterson. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm against all of it. I'm pro.
Make your bed.
I'm pro real art. But anyway, that's all, guys. So that's part one done, and coming up in part two, the military step up. Rishi Sunak stands up to Sturgeon, and Keir Starmer targets middle-aged men. See you in two.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Nick Dixon. Tonight, joined by the hugely talented Miriam Elliott and the hugely available Jonathan Cogan.
That's right, I'm available.
So let's start with the Mail and this very nasty story from Paris, Jonathan.
Yeah, so this is a really tragic event that happened in Paris. So violence rocks Paris. Furious Kurds clash with police after racist far-right gunman kills 3 people near a cultural centre shortly after he was released from prison in an attack denounced as odious by Macron. So demonstrators are setting fire to the streets of Paris and clashing with police after a racist gunman massacred 3 Kurds in the heart of the city today, which is obviously absolutely terrible. So William M, as he's referred to, opened fire by the Kurdish Cultural Centre, and he killed 3 people, many more were injured. Now, I think one of the reasons why there's so much anger about this is because he was, this is recently after he was bailed from prison, already on trial for allegedly trying to murder 2 Sudanese refugees last year. So this guy is obviously, I mean, he seems like a genuine far-right racist with violent intent. So
how is he still allowed to be out?
I think he's awaiting trial, so he hasn't actually been...
he wasn't convicted?
No. So, but he was on a watch list, and I think that's where a lot of the anger comes from, is this guy was clearly a danger, and he's been let free, which, you know, happens all too much with dangerous criminals. And, there's essentially blood on the hands of the people who let him go. Yeah. At the same time...
Do they need to have a riot about it, then?
Well, the police apprehended him.
Right.
And now there seems to be several police officers who have been injured as well, so the violence has begatted more violence, which is another tragedy. And it does really seem like... Well, what's the protest against? Because obviously this is a horrible event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't...
Yeah, it's a weird one, because you hear... I mean, firstly, they've overused far rights. Now, whenever we hear far right, we go, does he just think that men and women exist? But no, in this case, the guy's actually used a sabre to slice 2 men, as you said. So it's like, OK,
so he is far
this
right.
guy's a real deal. Yeah, and what's quite disturbing about him, you sort of had this with your sort of Breiviks and the guy who horribly murdered David Ames, that they were very calm after they did it. That people said he was really calm. Yeah. The night before he played Scrabble with his mother.
Yeah, that bit got to me. When it says he was a silent man that did not live like everyone else, and he lived with his 91-year-old parents. So there's something a little bit unhinged and off.
He definitely didn't live like anyone else. I think we can agree with that. Yeah. All right, that's a pretty horrible story, but it's probably ongoing. Let's move on to the Telegraph. And we've had to bring in the military in a terrible emergency, and turns out it's way better, Miriam.
Yeah, so maybe. Airports have been running better than usual in an embarrassing blow to border force strikes. So the government has been braced for disruption for a long time, and they were telling people that, everyone's going to go on strike. They brought in the military, and it's the best that it's ever been. There are people saying that it took me 5 minutes to get through passport control. And, it's the best time to fly, so that kind of backfired.
Yeah, it's
weird. And I was just thinking maybe the military should just permanently work at the airport.
A lot of people are saying that, aren't they? It's weird. It's like...
Do they have other things to do?
What do you mean, like wars and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't this be better than killing people?
Well, I guess it's probably a lot easier to work in. You have less PTSD from working in an airport, I imagine.
Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing. I mean, my mate Andrew Tate was saying the other day, we have now authoritarianism.
Yeah, your best friend.
Yeah, I met him the other day, top G. We have authoritarian. We have like an authoritarian system in the West, especially post-COVID. It's sort of, and with this wokeness, it's kind of creeping authoritarianism, and yet nothing works and nothing's safe. At least when you're in Dubai or somewhere, you can walk down the street with an expensive watch. Not that I have one. I've got a Casio. It's £8. But if I were to have one. And also, when I went to Dubai, I got skin cancer. The point is, Jonathan...
They would cut off the hand of the person that stole it.
Well, exactly. And so, you know, there's something to be said. The streets are clean, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So,
things are safe.
Sharia law.
Yeah, but we've got all this... We've got someone arrested for silently praying. Meanwhile, you can get stabbed walking down the street in any day in London in the daytime. So it's like, we have the worst of all worlds.
Because we're policing thoughts and feelings, not actions.
Right. Right, and I think there's also a lack of sympathy. The military are coming in, they're not allowed to strike. They're coming in at Christmas, they're getting paid 20 quid extra a day or something.
You know the military aren't allowed to strike. If they did strike, what would what would happen if they struck?
What would happen? They'd probably be out of the military suddenly. They'd very quickly find...
You just get fired from the military?
I imagine.
Oh, OK, fair enough. I did wonder how that
If I went on strike, no one would care.
Well, you've got to have a job.
There's a big problem.
My kids would be like, where's breakfast?
Yeah. And when you're in showbiz, you go on strike, there's just 100 people waiting to just pile in the next day. And
Not here.
Not here, because we're just too good. We're on a different level. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, are you sympathetic with the strikers at this point? I mean, like, the average private gets paid 22k.
Right.
People have said that train drivers get, you know, twice as much as the average soldier. So are people going to lose sympathy? The military are coming in, they're doing better.
I think if it wasn't at a time where people were completely screwed financially, then it might be easier to take.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've got mass inflation. Businesses were completely ruined for 2 years.
Yeah, for no real reason.
For no reason at all. Yeah, for no good reason. And we now know that that was completely pointless. And, yeah, I mean, I just think the timing... I can sympathise with the cause, but not necessarily...
I think the airport searches might be a bit rougher with the army in the...
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I personally think the military should run everything, including this show. The Times... Let's do the Times now. And I have to remain neutral as host, guys, so I won't say that Rishi might be blocking Sturgeon's evil gender reforms, Jonathan.
Well, that's the question. So the headline is, Rishi Sunak hints Westminster could veto Scottish gender reforms over safety fears. So we discussed this a little bit earlier, but I'm just going to explain what the Scottish bill that went through was. So it was passed by a margin of 86 votes to 39 yesterday, and the bill will make it easier and quicker for trans people to obtain a GRC by removing the requirement for a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. It also, and I think this is perhaps one of the issues that people find most polarising, is that it also lowers the minimum age for applicants to 16 and reduces the time required for an applicant to live in their acquired gender from 2 years to 3 months. Just a point of interest, when you live as the gender that you identify as, what technically counts as that? Was it you'd have to sort of dress in traditional clothes, or you... what does it mean to live?
It doesn't mean anything. It's all... Postmodernism is garbage.
Do you want to elaborate, Miriam?
Can't go any more.
For my mum at home,
because nothing exists, so anything. It's like a pantomime. It's like everything. Life is a
neo-Marxist.
Well, I wouldn't say it's Marxist, but it's kind of like a life as theatre, really, isn't it?
No, Jordan Peterson calls it neo-Marxist postmodernism.
Yeah.
You're the best friend.
Neo-Marxist postmodern. Well, I don't know, what do you think about this, though? Because, I mean, we were saying before the show that Sturgeon just does everything the opposite of England. So if we were like, puppies are good, she'd be like, puppies are bad, actually. And here's why, right? So she does the opposite. But I think we do have to... I mean, it says...
I just don't think, at the heart of it, I don't think it knows its own logic.
Right.
There doesn't seem to be any reason.
But the awful part is the 16-year-old... We touched on earlier. This would lower the minimum age of applicants to 16, and you don't have to live as the other gender for, as you said, 3 months, isn't it?
But what does that mean? This is what I don't understand. What do you mean living as another gender?
No one knows what that means, because the whole thing's based on faulty premises.
Yeah.
But I think we can agree that like someone said the other day on Twitter, you can't get a bottle of wine at 16. You can't have a tattoo, which is too serious and too permanent. But you can change your gender if you're in Scotland now.
You can drink Lambrini at 16, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Lambrini?
Yeah, that's what the off-licence guy...
No, you can't, Jonathan. He's tricked you there. So it says Sunak could invoke this Section 35, and what that is, he just cuts off Scotland and it sort of floats into the sea.
So it's going to be a legal battle between our government and...
And theirs.
Interesting.
All right.
Well, I can feel that coming.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
I think we dealt with that one, and we talk about that one every night. But let's do the Daily Mail. And Keir Starmer has set his sights on a middle-aged man. Is that right, Miriam?
Yes, so apparently Keir Starmer's idea to win power, the next generation, is to target a voter group called the middle-aged mortgage man, which is a key demographic
Doesn't like
to
you to
winning.
say that to his face, by the way. Don't
But
call
I
him the
find
middle-aged
it
mortgage
kind of odd, given that the kind of demonisation of the straight white male that's come out of the left for so long has now they're going to have to pivot on it because it doesn't work at elections.
Nice.
Because it just turns out that men exist and that they vote.
Me and Jonathan got a bit tearful there. Just finally a woman acknowledging that we exist.
Yeah. Of course you exist. And not only that they exist, that they built the infrastructure of most of this country and that they are incredibly talented.
I actually didn't build
group
that much
of people, and I hate this demoralising and frankly disgusting and pathetic attitude towards a group of people based on the colour of their skin and their gender, which is essentially sexist and racist and all the things that the former left, as I like to say, everything they seem to be against is what they are, when they just need to look in the mirror.
I would vote for you, Miriam. Jonathan, you didn't...
I don't represent any party, but I do think that they are U-turning because they're understanding that kind of identitarian standpoint is going to backfire, and they're not going to win anything. And this endless cozying up to ethnic minorities just for the fact that they're ethnic minorities, again, it's collectivism and it's baseless and it's kind of, people have minds of their own.
What's fascinating to me, that is interesting, but what's also fascinating is that in some ways it's a complete reversal for Labour, because the people with middle-aged people with mortgages, you think of that as the Tory stronghold.
Yeah.
Then again, when you look at it here, when they really boil it down, they're saying it's a middle-aged mortgage man who's 50 years old, without a university degree, but a good job in the private sector, a homeowner with a mortgage, and someone who almost certainly voted Brexit. So it's kind of an old Labour person. It's not economically possible anymore. It's sort of an old
It's a responsible man.
Right, yes, exactly. That sounds like an old Labour person. So what are they? Is it going to work? I think they will work. The Tories are in massive trouble. I'll give you an example. I spoke to some people the other day that work for Tory politicians, and they both privately admitted to me they were going to vote Reform. So that's how much trouble the Tories are in. Anyway, what do you think, Jonathan?
I think they should... I like the middle-aged mortgage man, but I think they should apply to other men as well. What about the checkered shirt-wearing, bong-toting 29-year-old man? There's a market there.
Great point. Yeah. Thanks for that, Jonathan. The Telegraph now, and a very Tory solution to the asylum seekers problem. Make them work, Jonathan.
Yes, this story in the Telegraph, the headline is, "Stop vilifying asylum seekers and let them work," says former refugee minister. So the Tory peer, Lord Harrington, has joined a growing Tory backbench rebellion over the government's restrictions which bar asylum seekers from working while they await the outcome of their applications. So currently, asylum seekers are only allowed to work in specific shortage areas after a year. But senior Tories, including former ministers Sir Robert Buckland and Tim Loughton, and now Lord Harrington, believe it should be relaxed to at least 6 months. So I don't really know much about this at all, but intuitively, that seems like a really smart idea. If you want, asylum seekers to be able to integrate and, to not necessarily rely on the state, then being able to work and, make their own money and, become part of the community and get to know people and basically be part of our business, that seems like a great idea.
Yeah,
off the top of my head.
So Robert Buckland is saying that we do this for Ukraine, so why can't we do it for asylum seekers?
Right.
Part of me thinks this is a kind of decline conversation. Like, we've got a problem with processing asylum seekers, but we also have a problem plugging labour shortages. So part of me thinks it's a sort of collapsing Britain problem. But what do you think, Miriam?
I think that could be, but I think it's great. Working gives you dignity and a sense of self-respect. So if you've come here without...
Not on this show.
I would say that's probably a good... and obviously if asylum seekers coming here want to work, then that's even better. That's great. You want to contribute, that's great.
OK, see, that was quite a caring, liberal point from us there. That, don't believe everything you hear about us. So that's part 2 in the bag. Coming up, why Boris Johnson is the best Prime Minister ever, the BBC actually admit a mistake, and our usual argument about Donald Trump. It's like Christmas with my family. See you in 2 minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's go straight to the Telegraph. And when I think of competence, I immediately think of Boris Johnson, Miriam.
Yeah, absolutely. So according to a new poll, Boris Johnson was seen as the most competent Prime Minister of 2022.
It was tough competition, wasn't it? It was sort of like...
Out of three.
It was sort of like your favourite strike or your favourite energy bill to pay. It was like a tough poll, that one.
So the survey found that 32% of adults chose Mr Johnson, with 29% backing Rishi Sunak and just 3% backing Liz Truss.
That was me. I clicked the wrong button. Sorry about that.
I don't know. I think, you know, Boris Johnson can get away with anything, can't he? Because of that mop of blonde hair and his poor pantomime act.
Well, I was thinking about it, and this, by the way, was a poll actually commissioned by GB News, great channel, from Matt Goodwin. He loves a poll. And this was... when I thought about this, it sounds funny at first, but then I thought about it, I was like, well, he did do the vaccine rollout. Whatever we think to the vax, harms are gradually coming out.
Yeah,
it was...
myocarditis, it's been confirmed.
Well, I don't know what we're allowed to say, but that's satire from Miriam there. There's a good bit of satire, but... how we laughed. But,
I was only joking.
My heart hurts.
The point is, the vaccine, whatever you think to the vaccine, the logistical rollout was quite competent, you could say, and getting Brexit done...
Too competent.
Really?
You could argue, but getting Brexit done, even though we kind of have not really done it properly, if you compare him in competence to Truss, OK, she's struggling, and then if you compare him to Sunak, he's just unknown. So in a way, he should win it.
Yeah, that's like saying who's the most knowledgeable of us three. Like,
how
you.
Dare
but
you?
Like, yeah, you win, but against what?
But against what? These other people have been in for like a week.
Yeah.
You know, and he was in for 2 years.
But what's interesting as well is that it was put to Conservatives, people who voted Conservative in 2019, and 62% said Johnson compared to 22% for Sunak. So a much bigger gap there. Tories still love him. Many Conservative voters still feel a bit peeved with how he was.
Do you think he'll be back? Do you think he's?
I think he will be back.
What, even after that party?
Yeah, those parties plural. He'll be back. He'll be like Churchill. He'll come back a lot later. He'll be like a sort of rubbish Churchill. Anyway, let's move on. Sticking with the Telegraph. And a woman appointed by Jeremy Corbyn is in trouble for anti-Semitism. Josh Howie is so gutted he's not on tonight. We'll have to make do with Jonathan.
Exactly, I'm the next best thing. So, yeah, Jeremy Corbyn's Jewish liaison officer expelled by Labour in anti-Semitism row. So Heather Mendick was hired in 2019.
Just want to apologise for Jonathan's language there. Carry on.
That's her name.
What's wrong with Heather? Yeah, so she was hired in 2019 and was accused by officials of undermining the party's ability to campaign against racism. So, so she is a Jewish woman and she was appointed by Corbyn to rebuild Labour's relations with the Jewish community. And she's been expelled. And I think there's perhaps good reason here. So Labour's investigation into Miss Mendick lasted more than a year and found that she broke party rules in a number of tweets sent at the height of the party's anti-Semitism crisis that she subsequently refused to apologise for. And I believe she tweeted, Kanye was right.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit off. I thought about taking that position just for, a devil's advocate with you two being sort of Jewish, apparently.
Yeah,
but
2 Jews on
allegedly.
the panel. Allegedly.
Well, I didn't want to, assume anything. I don't even know your genders. But it says that she tweeted the weaponisation of anti-Semitism against the left and how it's used to silence criticism of Israel are well rehearsed. So it's a kind of classic thing they say.
Yeah.
I mean, something like, let's be really fair.
Do you know what? Before 2020, I would have said, she's a self-hating Jew, she's an anti-Semite. But now I'd be like, yeah, there's probably some truth in that.
Oh, you think so?
Unfollow Kanye, for God.
What I find interesting is, some people say that this is not a real problem in the Labour Party. Josh Harry will disagree. He'll send you all the materials, even if you ask him or not. But the point is, I know people who are Jewish and love Corbyn and sort of know him. They live around that area. They say, no, he's great. I don't know what they're on about. And then,
but it's socialism, isn't it? I mean,
right.
It's not Judaism. I mean, they're ethnically Jewish, but they're not practicing, because Judaism is kind of ideologically not the same as socialism.
It's more a focus on the individual. And
it's more of, Judaism is about the individual and the connection with God, whereas communism is about the group, the collective.
The state becomes the God.
The state becomes the God. It's actually almost the antithesis, in a way.
Just so Josh doesn't email us, anti-Semitism has been a serious problem in Labour. Many people think, and I'm sure, I tend to agree. But
Corbyn's a weapon.
Let me just ask one question for you two, because I had a friend who said that they actually would feel unsafe if Corbyn got in. How would you feel about it? Let's say Corbyn got in, would it have worried you?
I did feel that way.
Yeah.
But I'm quite aware now of how I'm essentially slightly manipulated.
Okay.
So I'm not as susceptible to going with these things.
Okay.
I'd probably hide my bar mitzvah money in a Swiss bank account.
Right, good answer. All right, let's do The Guardian. And the Democrats want Trump barred from holding office ever again. Who saw that coming, Miriam?
So, this is about the January the 6th
incident?
Thing that happened. So there's now this kind of committee of judges that wants to ban Trump from running for re-election in 2024, saying that he incited the violence and the storming of the White House and that man with the funny hat.
Yeah,
a weird horn.
See, Nick and I were actually there, and it actually wasn't so bad when you were up
It was fine, yeah.
It was fine.
Total bants, yeah.
I don't know.
The FBI will be messaging us because they take this stuff very seriously.
Of course they do.
It was actually. I mean, Ashley Babbitt got killed, and people don't really talk about her. She was shot by a policeman person. I think it was a policeman. No one talks about that.
Wow.
But obviously, the Democrats don't want Trump running, and we all knew this.
Yeah.
Tactically, it's quite strange in a way because Trump's already quite weakened. They could end up with Ron DeSantis, and they could be thinking, "Oh, what have we done?" Because now we've got a much stronger candidate.
Much stronger candidate, if you ask me.
Yeah, would you? I mean, it is though. This Jan 6 thing bothers me because you're just going to alienate half of America. 75 million people voted Trump, and most of them, many of them, some of them do think Jan 6 was serious, but many of them don't.
It's the same as what they did about Brexit. 17 million people voted for Brexit, and they called everyone racist and xenophobic.
Yeah.
And they're doing exactly the same thing, and it's going to fail again and again because then it's claiming that people are irrational and crazy and not engaging with their actual argument.
It's just trying to crush your opponents, and and there are people still languishing in jail. There's Edward Jacob Long. He's been waiting a trial for 2 years, and I do sympathise with that. And also, we've seen the Twitter files come out. We found that there's definitely been election interference, on the other side, because they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story that was a totally legitimate.
Yeah.
They claimed it was a hack and dump, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was legitimate. So that is election interference. So on that side, there's plenty going on as well. I wish they would drop this Jan 6 thing. What do you think, Jonathan?
What's a damp squib? Because I always thought it was a damp squid.
Did you?
Yeah, what's a squib?
I'm surprised you've admitted that on national TV.
Are we on air?
Yeah. Yeah, it just means it's an anti-climate. You knew that, though. You knew that part.
I thought it's almost like a failure, like a non-starter. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what a squib is. Isn't Harry Potter a squib?
If Simon Evans was here, he would totally know. But
the thing about a damp squib.
But they're trying to say that Trump incited the audience to violence.
The producer doesn't like your squib bit, Jonathan, and says, "Let's move on."
Oh, fair enough.
Let's do the Telegraph.
Right.
Sorry.
And the BBC have actually upheld a complaint for months. What will they try next? Neutral reporting? Lol, Jonathan. Shots fired.
Spicy. So, and the Telegraph, so the BBC upholds complaint of a Catholic joke during Queen's funeral. So the controversy concerns a broadcast on the news channel as the late monarch's coffin was taken from Balmoral to Edinburgh in September. The BBC has upheld complaints about its staff laughing about Catholics being cleared out of Scotland during its coverage of the Queen's funeral. So I think the joke here, I didn't really get it, so I did some research. So it's referencing John Knox, the radical minister during the Scottish Reformation, who got rid of all the Catholics because he was a Protestant. I've got to be honest, I didn't get the joke.
Right.
And by the way, a squib is a small firework that burns out with a hissing sound without exploding. I knew that. I just left it a minute before I told you. Sorry about that.
So some Catholics were quite offended by that.
Yeah. It's a rare time when a Christian actually gets an apology, but I notice it's only sort of against other Christians because it's Catholic versus Protestant. Normally, no one cares about Christians. We've got the silent prayer madness going on at the moment. So this was actually refreshing that the BBC actually admitted they were at fault. But it doesn't really do anything, does it? I mean, what happens now? Nothing, really.
Nothing.
At least they've admitted it, but it doesn't change the licence fee, does it?
No.
I mean, we make jokes all the time, but we're not beholden to the licence fee, so it's a bit different. We don't have to be.
We're beholden to Ofcom, though.
That's true.
Some say the greater evil.
And we love Ofcom.
We're big fans.
We love Ofcom.
Don't say they're evil.
I don't know what they are. I just heard it.
It gets all in terrible trouble. Let's move on then and do The Sun. And Clarkson's endless walk of shame continues, Miriam.
Yes. So the former Top Gear presenter is in the middle of, all this storm because of his hateful comments to the Duchess of Sussex. Am I allowed to call her that? Isn't she just Meghan Markle now?
Yeah, just call her Megs.
Megs.
Do you think they were hateful?
It wasn't a nice thing to write, but I don't, being a libertarian, I don't think you should police people for what they say and think. I mean,
it was
maybe he
hyperbolic imagery, right?
Yeah, it was a bad joke, basically.
Yeah. What do you say, Sean?
But I find her very irritating.
It's absolutely mad.
And she's a terrible narcissist.
Yes.
And an attention seeker. And she is completely obsessed with this identitarianism because it gives her this permanent victimhood.
But did you think...
Which people love, don't they? They love feeling sorry for themselves.
Yeah, they love it. Did you think that incited hatred or violence against women?
I did think it was a bit... Yeah, I wouldn't say it was going to incite an actual group of people to go out and attack any other group of people. But it was just like a badly worded bad joke.
The Sun's apology is not going to do anything. Never apologise. I mean, Clarkson's apologised. They just want more blood. To me, this thing has gone absolutely mad. I mean, I did a 20-minute podcast on this yesterday, so I know all about it. I mean, you had Chris Packham saying we should jail him.
No, this man is insane. Right. Yeah, I think these people are like, they love policing language and thought, and it's like they're new Puritans in a way. They don't
on
really...
sale now.
Available now.
They don't look at actions at all. They don't care about actions. So that's why all our mainstream stories now... last week it was the woman that said, "Where are you from?"
Yeah.
It's a similar kind of... They're constantly trying to create this division between races. I think this is the new thing.
Well, let's bring in Jonathan. I just want to say, they were saying he should be jailed. Caroline Noakes said it was positively medieval. Yeah, of course it was. It was about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
All these politicians going mad. Kate Osborne said it was abusive white men with power and huge media platforms. As if Meghan Markle... By the way, why are you being sexist and racist? And then also, Meghan Markle is a very powerful person with a huge media platform. It's called Netflix. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think it was just it was a harsh joke. I don't think he literally meant it. And I think anyone would be a fool to suggest that he actually meant it. It was, I mean, it was definitely a kind of, not necessarily defamatory, but it was against her. The joke was very much against her as a person, I suppose. It's had 17,500 complaints to The Sun, which is what we normally get when Leo curses on. But yeah, it's generally, it wasn't a very nice thing to say. What he's saying is, I don't like her, and he's doing it in joke form.
But he did it in bad joke form.
Did you think the hyperbole was sort of lampooning himself, like his hatred was so ridiculous, it was a bit over the top?
They're trying to create the storm around it is again fixating on this narrative that.
But he says stuff like, the maker of the Mr. I've done Simon Evans again, but he says like the maker of this car should be taken outside and shot. Like he doesn't literally mean it.
No, of course he doesn't. It's nonsense. But anyway, we've covered that so many times. Hopefully Clarkson's endless walk of shame can end one day. But that's it for part 3. Coming up, why Disney films, pub crawls and Santa beards are all cancelled. See you in a minute.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own news from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, our very serious news show. Let's go straight to the mail. And the term pub crawl is now offensive, presumably to toddlers, Jonathan.
I had the same joke written down, so I'm not going to use it. That's right, don't worry. So the headline here is Campaign for Really Woke Ale. Beer enthusiasts told not to say pub crawl or happy hour. That's offensive to people not on antidepressants. To be more inclusive and end lad culture around drinking. So members of the Campaign for Real Ale, people who need a girlfriend, should avoid using phrases such as join the lads for a swift few after work, as they could put off women from joining in. That's the point. No, I'm joking. So the updated guidelines instead advise members to say they are embarking on a pub tour where they will savour a pint. You know, it's a push to be more inclusive.
It sounds like a primary school.
I hate this
telling you what to say.
Telling you what to say. This is exactly what these people do all the time.
But are they doing it from a market perspective?
Classic craft beer drinkers, aren't they? These are the mascots. I saw someone with craft beer at the height of the sort of lockdown nonsense. It wasn't even the height of it. They were walking through the woods alone with a mask and a bag of craft beer. I was like, of course.
Yeah, it's all the language of inclusivity, diversity, equality, blah, 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 blah. But it's just destruction.
It's nonsense. I mean, imagine saying, OK, lads, we're going to have a savouring, we're going to be savouring of a pint. Instead of pub tour, it's savouring of a pint. Reminds me of that old Steve Coon character who said, like, a pint of your finest ale, stout yeoman of the bar. And they were trying to train him out of saying it because he was a total nerd. It's
but what I find is it's again an attack on mainly working class men, basically. Like it's again an identitarian viewpoint where they take this one specific thing and say, no, we have to make it inclusive. So trying to destroy that custom and that culture. Using this kind of primary school.
Do you think there's a financial aspect here where they're just trying to get more people for more sales?
No, it never is, because they never end up getting more people for sales. This is the thing, they always say they go broke. All the time they go broke because they're just destroying things. And they need to be honest and say, we just want to destroy everything. Can you just be honest?
We just want to destroy.
Just destroy everything.
OK. Well, I'm going to destroy that story. Let's move on and do the Express. And the latest thing to cancel is Disney films, Miriam. Disney's gone.
Well, this kind of takes me back to my own childhood. So there's a woke father. I probably had a woke mother way before it was woke, who has banned his daughter from watching sexist Disney films. And by sexist, he means the old Disney films where women were, like, wearing dresses and being... hot and being rescued by men and sleeping a bit, wearing nice clothes.
We all take it very literally, don't we? Like, you can't kiss someone when they're asleep.
He's basically said, other than Frozen's OK because, you know, she's...
Oh, my girlfriend hates the film Frozen because it reminds her of what she's going to have to do to her.
I hate it. I hate the music too. So basically, they're doing this. He's banned his daughters from watching any of these films until they're old enough to know And when he means no, he means conform to...
Apparently, though, there's a bit of conflict here because this man's wife's boyfriend lets him watch the old Disney films.
What are you saying, Jonathan?
I'm saying he's a mega cuck. I can say cuck, that's not...
Oh, he says, I believe that nothing should be... He goes, my view is very pragmatic. I believe that nothing should be off limits, but only when people can fully comprehend them.
You can't ever fully comprehend anything.
Never.
Tell you what really bothered me about this one is that Disney is much worse now because Disney, there was famously those leaked Zoom calls and they were saying, yeah, we try and put sort of queer stuff in there. And there's not anything wrong with that necessarily, but for children, it's like, why are you trying to do that? These are things for children.
And it will, weirdly enough, I would say, have the complete reverse effect to what he wants. Because if he wants to raise a girl that is going to reject all of that, you know, this is not... she'll end up embracing it because it'll be like the verboten thing. And then, believe you me, by the time she's 10, she'll want, you know, the ball gowns and
basically, he doesn't want to watch
the girliness. And that's happening to all my friends who have kids that they bring in this gender-neutral parenting. It has the reverse effect.
OK, well, let's hope. Let's do the Metro now with a story about being petty, which I personally refused to read the Metro anyway because they annoyed me in 2003. Jonathan.
And it's a pretend newspaper. No, it's great, well, allegedly. So satire. Can being petty actually be good for you? So Lana Del Rey, the famed singer, has just set a new bar for levels of pettiness. So to promote her new album, Lana Del Rey has only had one billboard made, and it's in her ex's hometown. I believe we've got a picture of it somewhere.
Well, actually, she's in the car, and then you can see it in the background, and it's just...
What does it say? Do we have another picture of it?
It just advertises her album, basically, but the thing is that she only put it up in Tulsa.
The town where her ex lived, and the billboard says it's personal.
I think she said it... No, regarding the billboard, she said it's personal. Just to avoid, if you weren't sure it was deliberate, it totes was, basically. She's like, yes, I am being...
I feel like that guy's win. He's left such an impression. If you sling such good deed that someone puts up a billboard to you, that is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
I've done that once.
Yeah, someone said that on Twitter. It's like, well, hang on, he's still rent-free in your head. Right? Yeah. The only thing is, it's sort of a revenge tactic, isn't it? When men get revenge, it tends to be frowned upon more, I've noticed. You know, it's like...
When men get revenge, people die.
It gets a bit John Wick, doesn't it? Yeah. But what do you think, Miriam? Would you do this?
I have done it.
Really?
Yes.
How much was the billboard?
It cost about $4,500.
Wow, worth it, though.
It was when I was a radical feminist.
Were you?
Yeah.
What did it say?
And then I woke up. And then I woke up. Sorry?
Fair enough. Now, what do you think then to the...
What did it say? It said, I fell in love with a conceptual artist and it was totally meaningless, which I thought was quite
actually did it?
I thought it was satire.
I thought you were doing a bit.
Yeah, it was satire and it was real, so that was the joke.
Work on many levels.
It was actually work on many levels.
I hired you. OK.
Yeah.
Do you think she was too petty? Do you think she was the right amount of petty? Is pettiness good?
Who knows? I have infinite forgiveness to any woman that wants to do that because I've done it myself, so... It's part of the road to sanity.
That seems fair. All right. Well, let's crack on and do the Daily Mail. And a taxi driver has been banned from wearing a Santa beard, presumably because it will muffle all his fascinating political opinions.
Oh, this is terrible. Yeah, there's this taxi driver in a place called... Is it Grinch? Is that an actual place?
No.
Grinch Council.
They're calling him a Grinch.
Yeah.
Oh, but it says Grinch Council.
The Grinch who stole Christmas. It's Grantham in Lincolnshire.
So he has been banned from driving this special taxi that he drives around with his Santa beard, and I guess the taxi has bells and whistles and reindeers on it and whatever.
That was a real issue, yeah.
And this is annoying. So the council have said that he should take off the beard because they were unable to identify him as a driver because it covers his features.
What about all the masks that people wore?
Masks for 2.5 years. No one knows who anyone is, and for some reason they have a problem with Santa's beard. So he's got round it by... What do you think? He's grown his normal beard out and spray painted it white.
Yeah, but that didn't work. He said it didn't last very long and it flakes really badly.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Those things don't work.
Yeah, it just hasn't worked out.
But then I guess... On a deeper level, it's kind of the attack on Christmas, isn't it?
And he said just wearing the hat with normal clothes doesn't work. I mean, who would do something that stupid?
Yeah,
that doesn't work.
You look insane.
Yeah, I think it's absurd, isn't it? I mean, like it says, they were wearing masks for ages. We all had to wear masks, especially taxi drivers had to wear masks.
Which was deeply intimidating. Deeply intimidating.
You feel like
I think having children, young children, in a world where you can't see anyone's face is terrifying, yeah. And I'm really surprised that no one else found that terrifying.
Oh, good. I wore a mask 3 times, so I'm totally on board. I even forget those 3. Go on, Jonathan, what do you think to the non-bearded taxi driver?
I think he should be able to wear what he wants. It's his car.
Yeah. The state should have no part in telling him what he can and cannot do.
OK, well, let's do the Mirror and a poor woman who ended up with a single Brussels sprout. Now, this is why I'm glad we left the EU, Jonathan. Don't trust Brussels.
I don't get it, but I know it's funny.
So,
I'm
one Brussels
not sure it was actually, but carry on.
Fair enough. So yeah, this is in the Mirror. So online Christmas shoppers fuming at bizarre substitutions, including one Brussels sprout. So customers relying on getting their Christmas shopping delivered from Sainsbury's, Tesco and Asda have complained about cancelled orders, everyone's getting cancelled, and strange substitutions. So a number of unhappy shoppers have accused stores of ruining Christmas, quite a statement, after deliveries were cancelled at the last moment or items substituted with bizarre alternatives. So, you know when you do your shopping and you order a pack of McVitie's, but you get like some Jaffa cakes instead. They replace stuff, but we've had some quite outrageous, I'm incensed, we've had some outrageous replacements. So one customer who will have to make a few explanations to his family found his 2 9-month matured luxury Christmas pudding from Asda was swapped for 6 mince pies.
Oh my God.
Well, I was hoping we had a photo of the single Brussels sprout. We don't, so I'll just have to describe it. It was a single Brussels sprout, and that's it, really. I mean, you can imagine what it looked like. But yeah, what's your take on it?
It's a bit of a first world problem, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
and obviously, if you're dealing with millions of people shopping, you're going to have a few mess-ups.
It does get worse, because like it says here, someone ordered a joint of beef, but it was replaced by a pack of insect protein and a note from the UN. I mean, that's ruined Christmas for me, personally.
Yes, OK. Well, I think we've probably done enough on that. Very briefly, what are you guys going to eat at Christmas? Took too long. What are you going to eat? What are you going to go for, Miriam?
I'm sorry.
Why are we struggling with this?
I don't know.
Incredibly poor ending. But,
probably a packet of tortellini
let's just finish.
and a letter
That's
from
it,
the
guys.
UN.
We're ending the show. Thank you to Jonathan Cogan and Miriam Elliott. Tomorrow it's the Headliners Christmas special, and then we're back on Christmas Day. Not me, but Josh Howie's here because he needs the money. But for now, have a great Christmas, everyone, and we'll see you soon. And good night and God bless.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Oh, hello. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and for the final time, let out of his box was a naughty little boy called Lawrence Fox. I'm bringing you the news and the topics you choose, so settle down for the next 60 minutes, and let's see which ones we will give a Christmas visit. Wow, that's definitely an extra pint of Stella for my producer tonight for that poetic and moving intro. First of all, we will be talking to Elliot Hammer, Conservative member for Haringey, after the expulsion of former Labour councillor Joy Wallace for, can you guess what it is yet? Anti-Semitic tweets. Then, getting into the Christmas spirit, how to keep your light shining in times that can seem dark. And finally, I talk about polar bears, ice caps and children, being our future, with Arctic explorer Pen Haddow. All of that and maybe more, coming up after the news with Bethany Elsey.
Lawrence, thank you. Good evening. I am Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. A woman and 2 men have been killed and several others injured after a gunman opened fire at a Kurdish community centre in Paris, prompting violent protests. Demonstrators clashed with police near to where the incident took place, expressing anger at the attack, which authorities believe could be racially motivated. The French president called the incident a heinous attack on the Kurdish community. A 69-year-old man who was already known to police has been detained. It's understood he allegedly attacked a migrant camp last year. The Health Secretary's called the newly announced strikes by nurses on the 18th and 19th of January disappointing and says they're in no one's best interests. The Royal College of Nursing says the walkouts will go ahead unless the government opens negotiations over pay. Meanwhile, the GMB's called off a post-Christmas strike by ambulance workers in England and Wales. They'll now walk out on the 11th of January. The union's National Secretary, Rachel Harrison, thanked the public for their support.
The public are deeply worried about our NHS, and we are too. People across the country have been incredible in backing our members and NHS workers, and we care so much about them. That's why we are suspending the proposed GMB industrial action on the 28th of December. We know the public will appreciate being able to enjoy Christmas without any additional anxiety.
The Prime Minister's apologised for Christmas travel disruption as Border Force staff begin 8 days of industrial action today.
What do we want? 10%! When do we want it? No!
Heathrow, Gatwick, Birmingham, Cardiff, Glasgow and Manchester airports are all affected, but Heathrow claims it's operating as normal. Military personnel and volunteers from the civil service have been trained to step in if necessary. Rishi Sunak insists public sector pay must be controlled to keep inflation down.
First of all, I'm really sad and I'm disappointed about the disruption that is being caused to so many people's lives, particularly at Christmas time. What I'm trying to do is make the right long-term decisions for the country, for everybody's benefit. And I think we all know that the major economic challenge we all face now is inflation. It's inflation that's eating into everyone's pay packets, it's rising the cost of living, and I want to make sure that we reduce inflation. Part of that is being responsible when it comes to setting public sector pay.
Motorists are being warned to expect long delays as millions hit the road to spend Christmas with family and friends. The AA says an estimated 17 million journeys will be made today and tomorrow. A strike tomorrow by thousands of RMT members working at Network Rail is expected to make matters worse. The walkout will last until the 27th of December. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now let's get back to Lawrence Fox.
And so here we are, at the end of the year. Tonight, We are going to look back at some of the wonderful things we've achieved this year, some of the things that we have lost, and some of the things we might just need to get back. For the longest time, Britain fostered a reputation worldwide as a bastion and bulwark of tolerance, mutual respect, free speech, and constantly evolving progressive mentality, all wrapped up in this wonderful royal wrapping paper of stoic traditionalism, a deep respect for the past and those who gave their lives standing against tyranny for our hard-fought freedoms. I remember strolling through a posh supermarket this November. It was late morning and I was selfishly absorbed in my own worries. I rounded a corner and I was confronted by a couple stood stock still, heads bowed like extras in some sort of strange middle-class zombie movie. And it took me a while before I realised what time of day it was, and on what day it was, and in what month it was. So I stopped, meing, and I joined them to remember those ultimate sacrifices in silent gratitude at this, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, a ritual once so common, now receding into the gloomy corridors of time. And these times have become fewer and fewer over the years as memories wane, but there are still those who come together and take pause to remember the brave men and women who gave their lives so that Britons never, never, never will be slaves. Indeed, it is our shared conscience of fairness, which is what makes Britain one of the most fiercely progressive nations on earth. William Wilberforce, who once said, "One man can change a generation, but he can't do it by himself," and others, led the way into the abolishment of slavery years ahead of our American friends. This national character was stoically reinforced by our wonderful and selfless Queen, whose loss I don't think any of us quite understand the magnitude of just yet. I certainly don't. She personified our national identity and dealt with hardship in a way which inspired awe in so many. But there has been a recent addition to the national and indeed international lexicon of progressivism. It's a new and important one which is gnawing at the social fabric and our optimism for new beginnings in the coming year. Recreational outrage. I speak of this because the greatest gift 2023 could bring for me, and I suspect many others, is an awakening and a revival of the things that bring us together, rather than an unrelenting, laser-like focus on the things that will tear us apart if we allow them to. Recreational outrage began on social media, but very quickly it found its way into the mainstream as journalists, with a few magnificent exceptions, who in the past had to hunt down a story, found that now all they had to do was flick open their phone and see what the internet was recreationally outraged about today. They could then add their own extra dollop of recreational outrage on top, send it off to the editor, job done, off down the pub for a pint, or nowadays a chai latte in the park with a copy of Ibrahim X. Kendi's latest masterpiece. It's much easier, you see, to shout loudly about whichever outrage is screeching its way around the internet today than to actually do your job. Perhaps I would hazard a guess as to why so few put up a fight against the COVID hysteria, the quality of these experimental gene therapies, the dreadful and tyrannical lockdowns, and the cancellation of pretty much all of life as we knew it. I had my own run-in with this emerging trend of recreational outrage myself 3 years ago, come next January, when I made the grave error of standing up for Great Britain on a BBC television show. The ensuing witch hunt probably played a large part as to why I'm sat here today talking to you rather than on a film set moaning about tomorrow's 5 a.m. call time. So, as we look forward together to next year, let us remember that some things are crucial to the ongoing health and well-being of our wonderful, warm and genuinely progressive nation. And some things are fads, sad phases which come and go. Perhaps we should start 2023 by being on our own side for once. Let us look at the things we do well and see how we can improve them even more. Let us dispense with recreational outrage wrapped up as being kind. Let us be grateful that we are not all the same, we're all different, but we are all still all of us, countrymen and women who have different views and feelings. We are branches of the same tree, siblings in the same family. Let us seek out those we don't agree with and offer an open hand and an open heart to them in the hope that we ourselves can have our thinking moved, progressed, not by force or fear of being cancelled, but in love and understanding. Let us be British which is to be tolerant of everything except intolerance. Let us focus on ourselves and those we love who need us more than ever nowadays, and perhaps that way we can consign this faddish, un-British, recreational outrage to history, where it belongs. With all of that in mind, I'm going to first focus on the new year and ask you, what's your New Year's resolution? Mine, as often, is to look at employing someone to approve my tweets before sending them. But what is yours? Email me at yourviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at LozzaFox. Right, elections. We've had enough recently, haven't we? But what happens when someone is expelled from a party you support and you've opted to vote in? You can be expelled from the party, but it is up to you to resign, regardless of what may or may not be in the best interest of your constituents. However, many people don't. That is the case recently with Joy Wallace, formerly of the Labour Party, who was expelled for, can you guess what it is yet, anti-Semitic tweets. We approached the Labour Party for a spokesperson, but they directed us to the council leader, Prey Ahmed, who issues us with this statement. I am pleased that the Labour Party's official investigation has resulted in the expulsion of Councillor Wallace from the Labour Party. Racism and anti-Semitism have no place in Haringey or the Labour Party, and I want to reassure our residents and the Jewish community that any instances will be treated with the utmost seriousness, other than turning up on TV to talk about it. Councillor Wallace's conduct shows that she is not only unfit for public office, but does not uphold the Labour values of equality, fairness, respect and anti-racism, for which she was elected. Oh my God, this statement goes on. I hope that Councillor Wallace will understand the seriousness of her actions and immediately resign her seat on the council. Wow. So, you could have just turned up and told me that. Would have been more fun. Anyway, joining me to discuss this is Conservative member for Haringey, Elliot Hammer. Should she resign, Elliot?
I think she should. She was elected on the Labour ticket. She has posted these tweets, all of them historical. But of course, because she was elected, she doesn't have to do. She can stay there as an independent. But we say, the Conservative Party, we say, there should be a by-election in Fortis Green Ward, and the people should be allowed to decide who takes up her seat and who replaces her.
Yeah, you don't just stop being anti-Semitic when you become an independent, do you?
Well, no, of course, no. And the point being is that people don't know prospective councillors. Nobody knew Joy Wallace when they ticked her box. They voted for the Labour Party. And so now that she's been expelled by the Labour Party, she should do the right thing and resign.
And we're talking, just talk us through the ward. It's £1 million, £2 million houses. It's 1% of the white Liberal elite, isn't it, up there?
So we're talking about Haringey, we're talking about North London, but to the east of Haringey is completely red, OK? And you've got places like Tottenham, you've got David Lammy's constituency. But in the west of Haringey, where Fortis Green Ward is, that is very leafy, very rich, as you say, £1 million, £2 million houses, very good schools, you know, lots and lots of Teslas. It's that kind of place. So it's not a poor, deprived area. It's a rich area. Muswell Hill is the village. Muswell Hill. Yes.
The centre of
precisely.
Of
yes.
it all, the ring, isn't it?
It is. A lovely place. Beautiful people in Fortis Green Ward, and they should really be given a chance to elect somebody new, somebody who will represent their interests. So Haringey Council, there's not a single Conservative councillor in Haringey. There's a smattering of Liberal Democrats, but it's mostly Labour. So what I'm saying is the people of Fortis Green Ward should be able to vote in a Conservative who can be a proper opposition to Haringey, which is essentially a one-party state.
Well, along with the rest of the country, as far as I can tell, red or blue.
And it's the home of momentum.
That great movement that's done so much.
You know,
brilliant.
Yay, Jezza. Yay, Jezza.
What would you do? What would you bring that was fresh to Haringey?
So I'm a lawyer. Mostly a claimant lawyer, discrimination lawyer. So I bring questions to the council. Haringey Council, £1.5 billion in debt.
£1.5 billion in debt?
In debt.
And it's been sent to Zelensky every 5 minutes.
Well, precisely. And they've been Labour, I think, for about 50 years. Labour have been in power in Haringey. We don't have a single Conservative councillor. We need just one, just me. That's what I'm saying. And I can scrutinise Haringey Labour.
Haringey Labour. So, and what do you think it is about the Labour Party and the very affluent areas, as you say, you know, it's divided between East and West, this ward, the affluent areas in London that keep voting Labour, who don't have what affluent people have in mind, I imagine?
Well, what we say when we're out knocking on doors, we say maybe they're just too rich to vote Conservative. They're just too rich to worry.
I love it, too rich
to vote Conservative. Because they don't have the problems that working class people have. And so they can afford to be the champagne socialists that we all used to talk about. So
and what do the Conservatives have to offer the working man, nationally?
Well, the reason why we won the Red Wall is because we are the party of the working class. We're the party of the workers, not the wokers. And I'm sure you can agree with that.
I absolutely do agree with that. Elliot, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Lawrence.
And best of luck getting this sort of seemingly unelected person out of office.
Well, we'll see.
Stand again. Anyway, thank you. That was Elliot Hammer joining me. I'm now joined by, oh God, here we go again with this auto cue thing. I love it. I've got to wind through an entire thing. Right. Now, I'm there. I'm there. Now 'tis the season to get sniffles, and it seems super cold has been doing the rounds. We've now had yet more nanny guidance on not visiting family or friends over Christmas for fear of spreading it, and COVID and flu. Oh, it's so 2020 at the moment, isn't it? So joining me from Bath is Dr. Bharat Pankania, infectious disease expert of the University of Exeter, to give us a winter infection update.
Hello, good evening. So, unfortunately, at this Christmas time, we have what you would call a perfect storm of several viruses out in circulation, as well as bacteria in circulation, especially the pneumococcus and group A streptococcus. And with that cold spell that we've just recently had, everybody's indoors, sniffling, coughing over each other, poor ventilation, and unfortunately, case numbers have gone up for both influenza as well as for COVID-19.
I thought that we'd totally killed influenza off in the last 2 years. There didn't seem to be a single case of it in 2020 or 2021.
No, not true. We always have a influenza season, albeit in the last 2 years, the case numbers have been low. And the reason why the case numbers were low is we were not interacting with each other that much. But unfortunately, influenza, seasonal influenza, has been around for hundreds of years, centuries. And unfortunately, it will always be here until we find a really good vaccine against seasonal influenza. And by the way, the good news, further to the vaccines that were developed for COVID, I think in the next few years, say 5, we will get better quality vaccines against seasonal influenza too.
Right, so the plan is more jabbing of people to solve this problem. Is there an argument, am I able to put forth an argument, the fact that if you do something entirely unnatural and lock an entire population in the house for a bad flu for 2 years, you may mess with their immune systems, and therefore their immune systems can't cope when something quite simple that a child's immune system like strep A would have laughed at, I had it myself when I was a child, is now killing children?
Like this. What has happened is with our immune system, we have regular nudges. You know, regular infection, regular response, regular infection. But what it doesn't do, and it's really good to be able to tell you emphatically, very clearly, it doesn't weaken your immune system. It's not true. What has happened is we've got a lot of these viruses in circulation, and unfortunately, when you have these viral infections, you become automatically more prone to other infections as well as other bacterial infections, you see. So look, I've been a clinician for nearly 40 years now, and it always was the pattern. The elderly gentleman lady got influenza, and then a couple of weeks later, when they were red, raw, angry lungs, unfortunately, they got pneumococcus, and then they died. And now, fewer of them die because we do two things. One, we immunize against influenza, and two, in the older age group, we also immunize against pneumococcal infections. So we are keeping them alive compared to when I started off in clinical practice.
So you wouldn't say that we have, through better medical practice anyway, and better lifestyles and better diets and people being careful about visiting their relatives when they're not feeling sick, that isn't enough. We need more drugs in people's bodies.
No, it's not a question of we need more drugs. Not at all. What we do need is that awareness. And, information is power, education is power. So unfortunately, people don't understand transmission of infections. So what we need is people to understand that when I'm talking, sneezing, coughing in a crowded place, then I'm also releasing millions of virus particles in my breath when I sneeze, when I cough. And those particles find your nose, your mouth, and it infects you. It's as simple as that. It's very straightforward.
Isn't that what evolution intended, though, for the human race to spread these bugs around so they become less virulent and less deadly? That they mutate down to something?
No. Happy to answer that for you. So let me answer that in a different way. So evolutionarily speaking, the virus, the bacteria, wants to propagate itself, especially the viruses. So what they do is they reduce their lethality, right? And increase their transmissibility. But they still are, like seasonal influenza. It's transmissible. It causes illness. It doesn't kill large numbers, as say avian influenza would do. So look. Let me show you. And watch this space for the next few years. At the moment, we've got avian influenza in birds. It's predominantly a bird problem. But if that virus were to adapt and start transmitting in humans, then what will happen is we will get a lot of serious human infections because the virus has adapted to infect humans and transmit amongst humans from human to human.
One last question for you. Sure. Do you think people should be focused on being ill, or do you think we should focus on being alive and well?
Oh, without a doubt, we need to be focused on being well. And I always say, as a public health doctor, look after yourself, keep yourself physically, mentally in a good state, nutritionally, and most of the hard work will already have been done if you just do those things, mentally, physically, spiritually, nutritionally. Keep yourself well, and you will have already done your work. The smoking and overweight, etc. They are also big killers, really.
Well, my name's Lawrence Fox, and I endorse that message. Thank you very, very much. Lovely to speak to you.
You're welcome.
Right, coming up, we are getting in the Christmas spirit, finally. Everything has been very dark of late, and I want to remind you about how a positive mental attitude can help not only others, but yourself. Back in 3... Cass, can I get a fizzy water?
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Positive mental attitude. It's not easy, especially when your world feels like it's caving in around you. However, you can find a positive attitude by helping other people, making connections and tapping into your best self. Joining me to talk about this and maybe give me some tips for 2023 is Karen Heatley. Good evening, Karen. How are you doing?
It's Tracy. I'm great.
Thanks. It's like they're against me. It's like Anchorman, and they go,
right.
he will read anything on the teleprompter. It's the same.
Everything's fine with
Tracy,
positive mental attitude.
We're
so
good. Sorry.
It's all right.
I was reading about you today, and the thing that made me just so encouraged was net walking.
Yes.
Talk me through that. Wait, no, first of all, just tell us a bit about yourself, and then...
Okay, my name's Tracy Heatley.
No, it's not Karen.
It's not Karen.
It's Karen. It said on the machine.
Well, it must be right then.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm a chartered marketer. I'm in a marketing business and I'm in a networking business. So I support small businesses with marketing mentoring, and I run networking groups.
Great.
So that means that at the start of the pandemic, everything ground to a halt. So
how did you feel about
that? Honestly, professionalism aside and business head aside, the first day, I broke my heart. I was really, really upset, thinking, what if I can't run my business properly for 3 months, not realising it was going to be 2 years. So I was really upset. And then I have a knack of looking at the positives, and so I thought, right, OK, what can I do? Let's not focus on what I can't do. Let's focus on what I can do. So I switched on my networking groups online. And then the networking came because when we're networking, so at my networking groups, I encourage my members to have one-to-one meetings with each other. So during the pandemic, at the stage where you could meet somebody outside and you could do socially distanced walks, I thought, what a great idea. We can still have those one-to-one meetings. So the idea with them is that people get to know each other, get to build the relationships and the trust so that they can refer business. So I started having networking sessions. So I would go to the park and meet another business person that I know, and we'd be walking around and just chatting and getting to know each other. And actually what I thought would be a period of time where it would be a hindrance and those relationships, it would be difficult to, almost impossible to build. Actually, the business people, my networking members and myself, we built stronger relationships than what we had before. So as a consequence of this, of going on these networking groups, I started mentoring. This is where subsequently I started providing online marketing mentoring for businesses, and it came out of that. So it was just to keep businesses talking and keep referrals flowing.
And you've had a lot of success. So it's like you've got a good background of success in tripling people's profits and stuff like this. How does one stay optimistic in times of, you get told there's cost of living crisis, your taxes going to go up, there's no NHS waiting lists, they're horrendous, you're not going to be able to afford to heat your house. What is your mentality that, some of us who just sit there and go, oh, the world is going to hell? What's your motivational boot in the face? Not boot in the face, slap of the...
That's all right to do that temporarily, but you can't stay there. So I think focusing on what you can do rather than what you can't. But also, I help businesses with strategy and the marketing strategy, and I'm trained in business. So my business head is you do this, this and this, and there's formulas for doing that. And part of that, we're looking at buyer behaviour, we're looking at neuroscience to do in marketing and everything, but I honestly think that the business owner's behaviour makes a massive difference. So I think it's all in attitude and also surrounding yourself with the right people. So during the pandemic, there's a marked difference, I think, between businesses that just cracked on with it but became very insular and those that kept the support network and kept going. So we're human beings, we need to be with other human beings. Psychology tells us that. So I think surrounding yourself with the right people. I always call it a vibe tribe, but you choosing the right people to spend your time with, you become like people.
Networking in a vibe tribe.
Yeah.
I love it. I want to be part of this.
We've got people net whining now. Now you can go out and you can do net whining.
Where can we find you online?
Online at tracyheatley.com. That's easy. Not Karen, please, no Karen. tracyheatley.com.
Don't worry, Cass is going to get a real slap after this. Well, not an actual slap, because that would be awful. Anyway, thank you so much for coming,
My pleasure.
Tracy.
Thank
Not
you.
Karen, Tracy.
Thanks.
Next up, after someone gets the auto cue working, I will be delving into my inbox for your thoughts on me, the show, and what your New Year's resolutions are. Back in 3...
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.